All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening. A great Zichos Baruch Hashem to continue our journeys through the Ribbon Shalom story. Begin by thanking our Talmud Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pehei, our annual Talmud Torah sponsor, the Tilson Mishpacha of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Shurim and Drashos this year in the Zchus of the Soros Tovos of good tidings and tremendous Hatzlacha for all of Am Yisrael. We of course dedicate our learning in the Zchus of our precious hostages. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring them home b'shalom and b'karav, and of course all of us, we wait eagerly with the news out of Eretz Yisrael that Halavai, some type of deal should be finalized. We should be Zochem Eretz Hashem to see at least some of our brothers and sisters returned home. Halavai, our holy soldiers, should be successful. B'chol ma'aseh yedehem, and Klal Yisrael should just be benched with every bracha that Ribono Shel Olam has in Shamayim. So with that, let us begin. So we are at Eretz Hashem. We have the great Zuchos this week to be able to begin a new sefer in Chumash Shemos. And of course, the almost dichotomy between Bereshis and Shemos is so dramatic, because Bereshis is every story, even though there's anxiety, and every story, even though again there's difficulty and there's challenge, the story is always a happy ending. You know, happy is relative. The story is always a good ending. And then we come to Shemos, and there's so much sadness, and there's so much heaviness, and there's so much despair. And of course, again, what really began as this idyllic life in Egypt, with Klal Yisrael prospering. Remember, again, given our own space in Goshen, we had a man in government. Yosef HaTzadik was the viceroy, and then everything takes such a dramatic turn for the worse. Let's take a look at source number 1. So the pasuk says, "Vayimaru es chayehem ba'avoda kasha, b'choma b'levenim u'b'chol avoda basada." So over here, the pasuk is discussing the beginning, the genesis of the servitude. So what did the Egyptians do? They embittered our lives with hard work, bechomer ubelevenim, literally translated with clay and with bricks. Ubechol avoda basada, every type of work in the field, asher avdu bahem befarech. And ultimately, again, they worked us with farech. Now, again, farech over here, the translation is back-breaking labor. So, of course, what's interesting already, at first glance, just about the pasuk itself, is what appears to be like the redundancies. First, we're told that they worked ba'avoda kasha, hard work. And then again, as if that's not enough, there's more description. There's chomer, there's clay, there's levenim, there's bricks. And if that's not enough, b'chol avoda basada, there's field work. And if that's not enough, avdulahem befarech. So it's interesting, again, just tell me, the Egyptians worked the Jews hard. And I would have understood it. Remember, Torah is not a storybook. So for us, the reader, all I need to know, what's the takeaway message? Takeaway message? The Egyptians are exploiting the Jews. That's the takeaway message, right? Whether or not there's clay, there's bricks, there's field work, there's this, there's that, it doesn't really matter. But obviously, if it's included in the text, it does matter. The Torah is trying to convey something to us. So for example, I didn't put this on your sheet, but the Gemara discusses the idea. The Gemara discusses that really the entire instead of here is the last word of the pasuk, befarech. So we translate befarech as back-breaking labor. But it's interesting, the Gemara Masechah Sot, again, I didn't put it on the sheet. The Gemara explains that farech is a different kind of labor. Farech is futile labor. Futile labor, actually, the Gemara has a couple of different interpretations. The Gemara says that Paro assigned men's tasks to women and women's tasks to men, whatever those particular types of tasks were. Right? Other opinion, the Gemara says that Paro had Bnei Yisrael build on wetlands. So whatever they would build would simply again collapse into the ground. So what is the Gemara painting a picture of? See, Paro, we always speak of this. Jewish people have different types of enemies. There are some types of enemies who are just interested in subjugation. They don't really want to kill us. They just are interested in having Klal Yisrael kind of integrated into them. We just observed Asara B'Teves, right? So Asara B'Teves, the Siege on Yerushalayim. So this was the Persians, this was the Greeks, it was even the Babylonians, it was the Romans, at least initially. It wasn't really about destroying the Jewish people. It was about assimilating and integrating the Jewish people. That's one type of enemy. And then there's another type of enemy. Another type of enemy has no interest in the Jew except his annihilation. So again, the paradigmatic example of that is, right, Amalek, right? Amalek and Amalek's many offshoots over the years. This is what we begin to see again, even though they're not part of genealogical Amalek. We see that with Ishmael. We see that again with our current enemies now, that there is a hyper focus on annihilation. Annihilation. So one of the ways in which our enemies have tried to annihilate us over and over, if you want to annihilate a people, how do you annihilate a people? I know no one's going to volunteer to answer this one, right? Because you have to be a little maniacal to think this way. But we learn from our enemies. How do you annihilate a people? What do you need to do in order to annihilate an entire population? What do you need to do? Step number one. You need to break their spirit. And how do you do that? You dehumanize them. So the moment you go ahead and you make people forget that they're people and they begin to lose their sense of self, that's when you could, and you see this, by the way, our enemies did this throughout the ages. So the Nazis in Achsham B'Zichram, this was the entire idea that when they herded our ancestors into the camps, so what was done? The head was shaved. Right, so you shave a head, kind of every, a person has a certain sense of identity that's wrapped up in their hair. So suddenly you shave the head, you take away clothing, give a uniform, and you tattoo a number. So now a person really has lost any vestige of self. And now again, I'm a number. I'm a number amongst a row of numbers, all wearing the same misshapen clothing. Take away the sense of self, and ultimately break the spirit of the people, and annihilation becomes much easier. The first one to write this in the playbook of anti-Semitism was Paro. Paro was the first one. Paro wrote the playbook for this, right? And Paro understood, make people feel futile, you will break their sense of self. Once you obliterate their sense of self, it becomes much easier to annihilate the people. So therefore the Gemara says, what's Parech? Parech is unnecessary labor. It's unnecessary labor. It's just labor for the sake of labor. Build this and it just falls down, build it again, right? And keep on building it again. You're building on wetlands, the structure sinks, it's okay, just build it again. A person, even if they're enslaved, could potentially take pride in what it is that they are creating if it's something meaningful and endures. But the moment that I realize that my entire day, my entire life is being spent building things that don't matter, then by extension what that means is I don't matter. So that the Gemara says is parech. But what I want to show you, so therefore the Torah goes out of its way to really highlight all the different forms of labor, to really highlight this idea that this is not just about slavery. This isn't about like forced labor or free labor for Paro. This is about dehumanization of an entire population. So make people engage in things that are nonsensical, make people engage in things that are just not productive, you will break their spirit. And that's about it. Think about this just a moment. If you've ever been trapped in a career that you find totally unfulfilling, how do you feel about yourself? Generally not so good. Not so good. And the truth is, the interesting part is, it doesn't matter how much money you're earning. All right, maybe it doesn't matter how much money you're earning, right? But unless you're earning like a lot of money, even a nice salary, if you don't feel a sense of fulfillment in what it is that you're doing, it erodes your sense of self. That's why in life, it is so incredibly important that whatever we do during our waking hours shouldn't just provide us with a parnasa, but should also provide us with a sense of meaning and a sense of fulfillment. Because if you don't have that, the sense of self is eroded. So again, Paro understood this, and Paro exploited this. But what I want to draw your attention to is something that I find quite fascinating, which is, take a look at number 2. A beautiful and incredible medrash. The medrash writes as follows. So says the medrash, Mahu befarech. So this is a famous medrash. Medrash says, what does befarech mean? Farech, the Gemara says, the medrash says, is a contraction of 2 words. Peh, rach. What does peh, rach literally mean? Peh is mouth. Rach is soft. So what is peh, rach? Soft words, meaning what? Paro, notel sal umagrefa. So what happened? How the Medrash is talking to us about how slavery started. How did it start? Now you have to understand, it's not just a pshat that one day Paro woke up and said, okay, Jews are slaves. You have to understand, the Jews were important in Mitzrayim because they were the family of Yosef. Remember again, who were the Jews who came? It's not like they were the Jews. There were 70 people. All of them were related to Yosef. They were brought down to Egypt by Yosef. They were given station by Yosef, and therefore they had protexia because of Yosef. So Paro couldn't just turn around and say, you know what, I'm enslaving all of these people. It was a process, says the Medrash. How did the process start? It started like this. Paro natal salu magrefa. Paro took mortar and a little shovel. Mortar and a shovel. So Paro said, okay, Chevra, we're going to build. Let's build Egypt. Let's build back better. We're going to build Egypt back better, right? Let's go ahead and build Egypt. So he takes a mortar. He takes the little shovel, right, but it doesn't mean a rake over here. It means like a mortar shovel. Like a trowel. Trowel. Thank you. Trowel. So Mihai, thank you. Mihai. So what happens? The Paro says, "Okay, Chevra, let's do this." Mihai roes Paro notel salam magrefa va'oseh belevenim. So what happens? So Paro starts making bricks. Paro himself again takes the little shovel, takes the clay, and himself begins to make bricks. Now, obviously, what happens? People see Paro start making bricks. So what ends up happening? What happens? So the Medrash says, if Paro's doing it, then certainly the rest of us have to do it as well. Miyad holchu kol yisod b'zvizos v'asu imo osa hayom b'chol kochan lefi shahayu bali kochos v'giborim. So what happened? So this is fascinating. Who were the first people to join Paro? Who were the first people to join Paro in this initiative of building? The Jews. See, but if you notice, by the way, the Medrash doesn't say anything about the Egyptians joining in. See, these are Jews. Jews are givers. Jews are doers. And Jews, these family of Yosef HaTzadik understood what Egypt gave to them. Because Egypt gave them a home. Egypt gave them a refuge. Egypt saved them from a regional famine. They have tremendous gratitude. Jews have gratitude. Jews are willing to work. Jews are willing to give. So what happens? Paro picks up his clay and his little shovel and he begins to go ahead and make bricks. And who joins right in? Klal Yisrael. And they're working and they're schwitzing and they're working so hard. Okay, what happens? So once it became dark, right? So the day came to an end. So now they worked a full day. Nighttime comes, they're ready to go home. Paro set up taskmasters. Amar lahem, manu es halavenim. Paro said to the taskmasters, count the number of bricks that the Jews made. Miyad amdu umanu osam va'amar lahem kazeh atem ma'amidim li b'chol yom. And Paro said after they counted the bricks, Paro said to the Jews, that number of bricks that you produce today, that is the number of bricks you're obligated to produce for me every single day. That's how slavery started. Now, by the way, you also don't have to understand the Medrash literally that this happened in one day. What the Medrash is highlighting over here is how the genesis of slavery. It started, and Paro was smart. This was all planned. It started with Paro saying, okay, we're all going to work together. We're going to do this together. Paro starts, good leader, leading by example. Everyone meaning the Jews, get involved, and somehow, whether it was a day, 2 days, 3 days, a month, whatever it was, but at a certain point in time came Paro and said, okay, Chevra, thank you for volunteering, now you're conscripted. Taskmasters count the number of bricks, this becomes your obligatory daily quota. And that was the beginning of slavery. And the Medrash goes on. The Medrash says, "Manes hanokshim shal mitzrim ala shotrim shal Yisrael v'ashotrim nisman al Yisrael." So the Medrash goes on to talk about again that there are Egyptians over Jewish taskmasters, the Jewish taskmasters over the populace, so on and so forth. But this Medrash highlights the beginning of slavery. Go to the end of the parasha, source number 3. Now again, so there's a lot that happens between 1 and 3, right? 1 is the beginning of the parasha, 3 is the end of the parasha. What happens between 1 and 3? Moshe Rabbeinu happens between 1 and 3. And by the time we get to 3, Moshe has already approached Paro and has said, Shlach ami vayavduni, let my people go. He's already put out that message. Paro does not respond kindly to that message. He does not take well to it. So what does he say in number 3? Vayitzav Paro havayomahu es hanoksim ba'am v'ashot rav lemor. So Paro commanded the taskmasters, saying the following: Lo sosifu lo seis teven la'am vilbon halaveinim. Do not give any more straw for the Jews to make their bricks. Let them go and find their own straw. So Paro says, no more straw for this chavra. That's maskonas chalavim asher hemos in tmol shel shom tasimu aleim lo siknu mimenu ki nirpim heim akenim tzoakim lemor nelchat nizbach alelokenu. And Paro says, no more straw. They clearly have too much time on their hands. If they're talking about freedom, they're talking about serving God. Too much time on their hands. They're lazy. And therefore, again, no more straw. Make your own straw, but you still must come up with the same tally of bricks. What's the dominant theme in source number 1, 2, and 3? Dominant theme? Definitely progression. Or the dominant item in sources 1, 2, and 3? Bricks. Bricks. A lot of bricks. A lot of bricks. And a lot of discussion about bricks. Like, in other words, if we go in chronological order, so remember again in number 2, slavery begins with the creation of bricks. Number 2, Paro ultimately again tells them they have to make bricks. They have to fashion bricks. Source number 3, when Paro punishes them, Torah goes out its way to say, no more straw, find your own straw, but you must come up with same number of bricks. So again, Torah is not a storybook. So when you see the Torah, remember, we could have consolidated this entire story into one very simple sentence. The Egyptians made life very hard. They made unreasonable labor demands and pushed us to our limits. That's the story. That's the story. I don't know that I necessarily need to know all the story about bricks. Paro made bricks, Klal Yisrael made bricks, there's voluntary bricks, obligatory bricks, certain number of bricks, no more straw for the bricks, go find your own straw, same number of bricks, just a lot of discussion about bricks. When you find something that pops up all the time in the text, over and over and over, there must be something else that is going on. So take a look at number 4, source number 4. So this is a beautiful piece. This is a beautiful piece by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So the Rebbe says as follows, in paragraphs Aleph and Beis. So the Rebbe or is bothered by this same question. Why all the preoccupation and why all the fascination with bricks? Why are we spending so much time on bricks? And if you take a look at paragraph Gimel, so the Rebbe said, this is source number 4, paragraph Gimel. The Rebbe says something absolutely amazing, and it is so profoundly insightful. The Rebbe says, there are essentially 2 different types of building materials, right? Or 2 different types of materials that a person could build with. What are the 2 materials? Stones and bricks, right? You build with stones, build with bricks. So the Rebbe says, wherein lies the difference between stones and bricks? So look at it in paragraph Gimel. Ha'hevdel ha'yisodi bein avanim le'levenim. So the fundamental difference between stones and bricks, he says as follows, Sha'avanim heim beria bidei shamayim. Stones are made by God. Stones are natural forming, right? You go into nature, you quarry stone, and it's there, and the shape is there, and the color is there, and the dimensions are there. Stone is made by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'ilu halvenim he ma'aseh yedei adam. Bricks are made by man. Bricks are fashioned by the hands of man. Ba'avanim yitziras ha'avanim atzman he bidei shamayim. Now again, if you want to use a stone for building, what do you have to do? So as much as the stone occurs naturally, if you want to build it, what do you have to do? You have to hew it, chisel it, right? So again, you need to, or rarely can you just take a stone out of the ground or off the side of a mountain and go ahead and plunk it into a building, right? You have to chisel it, you have to hew it, you have to do something with it in order to be able to get it to the dimensions that you need. He goes on, he says, so as much as the stone itself is created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, man has to quarry the stone, and of course after he quarries the stone, he has to shape it, chisel it, and ready it. But as much as man chisels the stone, right, and hews the stone, and shapes the stone, he doesn't make the stone. He doesn't make it. Contrast that with bricks. When it comes to bricks, kisha adam notel chomer. What happens with bricks? A person takes clay, straw, goveloso, bikash vishtorfo betanor. So what do? You need the mixture with straw, with clay, and then you put it, I guess, what do they call it? Like a kiln, or you put it in the oven, you heat up the oven, you make the brick. Hu yotzer mitzias chadosha levena. You make something new. So a brick is something that is fully created by the hands of man. A stone, on the other hand, is something that ultimately is found in nature, created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's man's job to shape it in order to fit it into an incredible edifice. So listen to this. So the Rebbe says as follows. The Rebbe says like this. So let me tell you a little bit outside. So the Rebbe wants to make the following observation. What is the avoda of a person in life? Right? What's the avoda of a person in life? The avoda of a person, like, you know, like what's the bracha you often give, right? Somebody's getting married, right? What's the bracha that you give to a person who's getting married? You should be zocha to build a bayis ne'eman b'Yisrael. Now it's interesting because bayis is often, which you should, however you translate that, you should be privileged to build a steadfast home in Klal Yisrael, which is beautiful. Now, but home is often used in different contexts as well. For example, there's a beautiful Gemara. I don't remember which Tana in the Gemara it is, and one of the Tanaim said, Miyamai lo karasi li ishti. I never called my wife my wife. Rather, what did I call my wife? Karasi li ishti beisi. I called my wife my home. Called my wife my home. Now, okay, there's a very beautiful marriage metaphor in that, but for our purposes tonight, what's profound about that is a person is also a bias. A person is also a home, right? A home represents a construct in this world. A person himself is also a bias. And by the way, we see this so often in a couple of weeks from now when we'll get to the sections of the Mishkan. Right, so for example, again, how we introduced to the Mishkan and Parashas Truma, va'asuli mikdash, make for me a mikdash, right, or a Mishkan in this case, v'shachanti bisocham, and I will dwell within you. And that interesting dichotomy, I mean, what does that mean? It should say, build for me a mikdash and I'll dwell within it. What do you mean, dwell within you? And again, it's fun to point out, Chash Baruch was telling us a profound message. Yes, when there's a Mishkan and there's a Beis HaMikdash, the Shekhinah is there. And when there's not a Mishkan and there's not a Beis HaMikdash, what happens? Every person becomes their own Beis HaMikdash. Every person becomes their own bias. So it's interesting because we often think about this idea of you should build a bayis ne'eman b'Yisrael as just a reference to marriage. But the truth is, even a person's not married, it's the same avoda. My avoda is to build a bayis ne'eman b'Yisrael. It's to build myself into a steadfast home of personalistic holiness. Well, how do you build a home? How do you build a personalistic home? So Lubavitcher says something amazing. Well, let's go back to this. There's two different types of building materials. What are the two different types of building materials? Stones and bricks. And essentially what the Rebbe says is as follows, and this is incredible. He says stones represent the circumstances in life which are visited upon you. Right? What are stones? Stones are naturally, right? Stones are things that are found in nature. But Baruch Hu creates them, right? No one created the stone. No one could say, look at this incredible stone that I made. Okay, so now they make synthetic stone. But I'm saying, no one could say, look at this stone that I made. So I find a beautiful stone. If you find that beautiful stone and now you want to use it, building your physical home, what do you have to do? You have to chisel it. So the Rebbe says, there are stones in life. And the stones in life represent the circumstances conferred upon us, or sometimes foisted upon us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I didn't make the stone. Sometimes I didn't even choose the stone, but the stone is the reality that I have. The Rebbe says, what do you do with the stones of life? What do? Chisel it. Chisel it and figure out how to make it part of your structure and move forward. See, it's interesting. Stones could also be obstacles, right? And a stone in the middle of the road, if you just kind of leave it there, could also be something that prevents you from moving forward. So the stone circumstances of life, you have a choice. A lot of times those stones of life, they just like land right in front of you. So what do you do when that stone of life lands right in front of you? So you can say, okay, I'm stuck, can't go anywhere. Sorry, turn around, stay in place, decry how terrible the stone is, or lift it up, chisel it, shape it, find a place to put it in your personalistic structure and build it into your life. Those are the stones. but there's something even bigger than the stone. And look at paragraph Daled. The Rebbe says, and again, essentially, what the Rebbe says, the imagery of the stone is, take your circumstances and ultimately, again, make the best of them, right? One of the hardest lessons we learn in life is, we all start out with a beautiful plan, a beautiful vision on how everything is supposed to go, right? And then what happens? Right? It doesn't go that way. It never goes that way. So what do you do? And those are the stones of life. The stones of life are the circumstances that don't go according to plan. So what do you do with it? Take the stone, chisel it, and figure out how to use it. Figure out how to lean into it, figure out how to utilize it, figure out how to build it into your structure so that it doesn't paralyze you in place. But the Rebbe says, look at paragraph Daled. Ulam, yesh darga el yona yoseh b'avodas Hashem. But there's something other than stones as well. And what is that? Ha'adam eino mistapek b'nitzul habriya atzma le'inyane kidusha, elo hu yotzer mitzius chadosha b'soch gidrei ha'olam. Hu hofech es hara latov v'es choshech ha'olam la'ar. Hu yotzer levenim mitzius chadosha ba'olam shenishava al yidei avodas ha'adam. So this is so beautiful. The bricks of life, what does that represent? That represent the circumstances of life you create for yourself. Bricks are not made by God. Bricks are made by man. Bricks are fashioned. How big the brick is, the size of the brick, the width of the brick, the length of the brick, the depth of the brick, the height of the brick, it's up to you. The bricks represent the aspects of your life that you 100% control. So make something incredible out of it. And the Rebbe essentially says so beautifully that the personalistic structure, my personalistic structure is made up of these two building materials. I know a lot about building materials. I've learned a lot over the last couple of years. Right? And the truth is, what you begin to see is there is no structure that is made of only one type of material. All structures, by definition, must be made of multiple materials, and the bigger the structure, the more materials that you have to include in that edifice. So that essentially says, every personal home, every individual is made up of stones and bricks. The stones are the circumstances that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave you. The stones are your life circumstances that you did not choose yourself. The stones are the reality of your life that you are, for lack of a better term, stuck with. This is what it is. But here's the great part. You didn't create the stones, and the truth is you also can't give back the stones because they're yours. But what you can do is you could chisel them. You can figure out again how to utilize them and how to fit them into the structure of your life so that somehow in some way they do not impede your growth. And then there are the bricks. The bricks are the incredible things in life that you create for yourself. What are the parts of you that you have the control over? The parts of your persona, the parts of your lifestyle, the parts of your home, the parts of your dynamic activity, your career, your spirituality, the type of relationships you want to have. These are the bricks of life. These are the bricks that you control, that you fashion, that you make. And both of these materials go into your personalistic structure. And I'll show you something amazing. If you take a look at number 5, there's a beautiful Gemara. The Gemara says in Maseches Tainis, the Gemara says, V'shema yomer adam. This is a beautiful idea. So the Gemara talks about someone, which is a common condition for many of us, where we project one image to the outside world and a different image behind closed doors. So a person could say, you know what, here's the good news. No one will ever discover my ruse, right? I'm able to project a wonderful external image of piety. Everyone thinks I'm a tzaddik, it's fantastic. And who will know the difference? The Gemara says, I'll tell you who's going to know the difference. Me, may it be. Who's going to testify against me? The Gemara says, Avnei beiso shal adam, v'koros beiso shal adam me'idin bo. So first of all, it's a very dramatic Gemara. That after 120, right, we're all summoned to the Beis Din Shema. We have to go to the heavenly court. And in the heavenly court, we have to go ahead and give an accounting of our lives. Now, it's important to understand also, the court wants you to be successful, right? Sometimes when we think about judgment, we think about like this cross-examination, right? Sometimes like, you hear people do like this imagery of like, there's going to be, the Beis Din's going to be there, they're going to examine your whole life, and your parents are going to be there, and the Shemos are going to be there, and everyone's going to see every single thing that you did wrong, and it's going to be this. Again, obviously, I don't know if that's true or not. I would find it very hard to believe that that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does to us after 120. When you see the incredible emphasis that Chazal place on not embarrassing someone in this world, right? And how careful you have to be not to embarrass someone. I can't believe that after 120, so the Neshama is going to be humiliated in front of multiple generations. But what does end up happening is there's an accounting for the life that you led. I think it's more like a performance review with the Ribono Shalom. Right? Chash Baruch Hu says, Sheifla, come, sit down, let's talk about what you did. Not what you did wrong. Let's talk about what you did with your time in this world. And let's go through it. Let's just talk about it. Let's a little bit of a debrief about how the last 120 years were. And who comes in to talk about my life? Who comes in? The walls of my house. Because the walls of my house see me in all types of situations. And the walls of my house know what I do and don't do behind closed doors. So it struck me, if you look at the Lashon of the Gemara could have just said, walls of a person's home, come in and testify against it. But that's not what the Gemara says. What the Gemara says is Avnei Beiso, the stones of his home, and Koros Beiso. Now what does Koros mean? Koros means the boards or the beams. Now interestingly enough, what's the similarity between boards, or I should say between beams and bricks? Beams and bricks? They're both created by man, right? Beams are not naturally formed, right? Stones, once again, are natural forming. Beams, right? Beams obviously come from a tree. The tree grows, right? From the same way that the bricks come from straw, from clay, which also comes from the earth. But the beam, you have to take it, you have to fashion it into something. So it's interesting, because what is the Gemara saying over here? After 120, essentially, it's the stones and the bricks, or the stones and the beams, that testify about the life that I lived. What is the metric of a successful life? There are two things, two metrics. How you used your beams, or how you used your bricks, and how you used your stones. What did you do with the circumstances that life visited upon you that you did not choose? Did you complain about it? Did you wag an accusatory finger heavenward? Did you just go ahead and give in and resign yourself to the unfairness of your circumstances, which a lot of us end up doing? Or did you take the stones, chisel them, hew them, put them into an edifice of personalistic growth and do something with it? But that's only part of the equation. What did you create? What did you make? Where's the chidush? Where's the innovation in your life? What are your bricks and what are your beams? It is not enough to chisel stones, and it is not enough just to make bricks. One needs a fundamental combination of both. And interestingly enough, just one more eye to this, if you take a look in the beginning of the parasha, right? So what ends up happening? The Torah says that, we know the story of Shifra and Puah. Shifra and Puah saved the Jewish babies, and the Torah says that Chash Baruch Hu rewarded them. How did Hashem reward them? The pasuk, I didn't put it on the sheet, but the pasuk is Vayihi ki yaru hamiyaldos esa elokim, right? Because the midwives feared Hashem, they did listen to Paros. What does the pasuk say? Vayas lahem batim. What was the reward for Shifra and Puah? The reward for Shifra and Puah is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu helped them to make homes. How do you make homes? Out of bricks and out of stones. What did Shifra and Puah do? They took the stones that they were given and they chiseled them and they made them into a beautiful edifice, and they created incredible bricks of innovation and chiddush as well. The spiritual heroism of Shifra and Puah resulted in beautiful homes that were created. And one more piece. If you go back just to number 3 for just a moment, one more word about the bricks. What happens at the end of the parasha? What happens at the end of the parasha? So Paro gets all upset about these dreams, about these ideas of salvation, of freedom. And what does Paro say? Paro says, Lo sosif, I'm back in source number 3, pasuk Zayin. So Paro commands the taskmasters and he says the following. He says, Lo sosifun, lo seis teven la'am lilbon halavenim. No more straw. No more straw. What's the message ultimately again in Paro's no more straw? What's the message in that? In life, no one is going to give you the straw for your bricks. If you want to create something in life, you have to make it happen on your own. No one is going to give you the raw materials to help you make your bricks. You have to do it on your own. What happens in life so often is we want to accomplish things. But you know what happens when you want to accomplish things? I have a whole plan. But my plan often entails other people having to do things as well, right? I want to accomplish, but I need my parents to do this. I need my siblings to do this. I need my spouse to do this, my employer to do this, my kids to do this, my friends to do this. If you outsource your success, one thing you could be assured of, which is you will fail. Because no one is responsible for your life but you. And no one is responsible for your success but you. And no one is responsible for your happiness but you. And no one controls the outcome of your narrative but you. You control your bricks, which means you must produce your own straw. And what's so incredibly amazing about this is what looks, of course, like something draconian from Paro, which it was cruel and inhumane, but yet what a profound lesson. Paro was almost telling Klal Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, I want to teach you a tremendous Musar Haskell. No, he wasn't trying to teach us a Musar Haskell. He was trying to punish us. But we learned a tremendous Musar Haskell, which is that if you want to create bricks in life, don't wait for other people to bring you straw. If you want to create bricks in life, get to work. Work hard. Roll up your sleeves. Create your own straw. And with your own straw of effort, create your own bricks of personalistic accomplishment. And so it turns out, if we pull this all together, why does the Torah spend so much time on bricks? It turns out that it's not an accident. And it's not just an interesting story. There's a profound and overwhelming subliminal message that is being conveyed to us in these psukim. The Torah is teaching us how to build. Remember, Paro put the Jews to work in building. And embedded in this parsha is the lesson about how to build our lives, how to build ourselves. And the Rebbe says, two building components, stones and bricks. The stones representing, again, the very situations in life that are foisted upon you. They're naturally occurring. What do you do with those? Don't allow them to paralyze you. Don't allow them to block you. Don't allow them to be barricades or hurdles in the face of your personalistic progression. But rather take them, chisel them, and find a place to put them in your life. They're part of your life. They're not going anywhere. Figure out a way to plug it in to your personalistic edifice. But you also have to be a mechadesh. You have to be an innovator. You have to be a person who creates new things in this world for yourself. Those are the bricks. The bricks represent those beautiful units of personalistic. What are the things that you're going to create? What's the light you're going to create? What's the holiness that you're going to create? Those are the bricks of life. But just understand, in order to create bricks, you have to be courageous enough to make your own straw, or at least to gather your own straw. Bricks only come because you forage around for the materials to make the bricks. Then once you work hard enough to get the materials, you'll create the beautiful bricks of personal accomplishment. But if you want something in life, whether it's spiritual or material, make it happen yourself. Don't rely on others for your success. I don't mean don't rely on other people. We all have to rely on other people. But if you truly want something meaningful out of life, if you want to create beautiful bricks of personalistic accomplishment, one has to understand they have to forage, they have to work, and they have to put in the effort themselves. So there are no mundane details contained over in Parsha Shemos, but rather, again, in the midst of the beginning of this narrative, an incredible servitude, in the midst of all of these details of Paro imposing upon us forced labor, is the recipe for how we build our personalistic structures of success. Stones, bricks, get your own straw, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu guarantees us that we'll be successful. All right, we'll stop over here for tonight. Shkoyach, everyone. Next week in Meretz Hashem we have Shir, but it'll be one building over in Meretz Hashem. Where exactly, I'm not sure yet, but we'll post it on the chat in Meretz Hashem. I think you can see if you're not on the WhatsApp group, by the way, there are QR codes on the source sheets. So if you take your cell phone and you scan that, that'll add you to the WhatsApp group. That way you can see Amir Hashem if there are any changes in the schedule. But we are on next week in Meshach for 8 o'clock. Location to be determined. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.